The beginning of the 2000s was an odd era for me. I was getting out of high school, didn't really know what to study in college, and as advice from my dad, in the spirit of my life, I tried a lot of different things. I was living the first floor and making my way into my 20s, in which I wasn't too sure what to do with my life. But the only thing I knew for sure back then is that I really freaking loved anime and video games. So, being from a third world country with many hurdles when accessing things such as consoles, games, and heck, even money at times, emulation was my bread and butter back in the good old days when it came to trying out new things. It's what we had the easiest access to, cause even if you did have the money, well, where was I gonna find a copy of Victory Union Will Never Fight Alone? There was barely enough demand for it in the States. Do you think the few game retail store we had were gonna ask for shipments of it? Justification for pirates in my late teens out of the way, this period is interesting to me as a gamer since not only did I try many GBA, SNES, and Saturn games, but also more obscure titles from a little console known as the Neo Geo, which for the longest time I thought were only arcade machines we simply never really got, which is kinda true as well. I tried so many games on this thing: Sengoku 3, Metal Slug, Samurai Showdown. Dude, that game was lit! But there was one game that stuck out to me from the get-go. Something about the name, Garou Mark of the Wolves. That sounded so cool, I just selected it from the list of games, and mind you, I had no pictures to go from, and I was treated to this.
They existed. Those blinded by ambition. Those consumed with vengeance. But here, they do not exist. Only winners and losers here. For here, the mighty. Garou Mark of the Wolves.
Sold from that very moment. Little did I know, however, that I was about to experience one of the most iconic and legendary games from the system. One that not only has withstood the test of time, but also often referred as probably one of the most fun and satisfying classic games out there, right next to Street Fighter, Tekken, Darkstalkers, and even its distant cousin, the King of Fighters. For those of you who might not know, a little bit of history. Mark of the Wolves is actually the 9th installment of the Garou franchise, also known as Fatal Fury in the West, whose first game, Garou Densetsu Shukume no Tatakai, was the very first game to ever feature the King of Fighters tournament, fittingly enough being released into the West as Fatal Fury, the King of Fighters. While KOF could be seen as the smash of 90s SNK properties like Fatal Fury, Art of Fighting, Ikari Warriors and such, from the very first game, the Garou franchise was a series more focused on a tighter cast and story in comparison. Throughout its history, KOF follows a different protagonist and team as time goes by, whereas Garou mostly focuses on Terry Bogard, who is pretty much the main guy of the series. Sporting his iconic look I swear I will get ripped enough one day to cosplay as, it tells the tale of the hungry wolf versus Geese Howard and his family as they feud over South Town throughout the renowned KOF tournament at times. Mark of the Wolf is the last installment in this series, as it was pretty much absorbed into KOF after this, with Terry and many of its characters becoming regulars in it. And believe it or not, a lot of characters that are super iconic in KOF actually came from Garou Den. Terry, Mai, Joe, Andy, Geese, it even had its own movie and all back in the day. It's a bit sad seeing Fatal Fury fade away, even though KOF is seriously a good franchise, at least until 13, which was the last one I played semi-seriously. Mark of the Wolves is the new generation in this franchise, but it does so in a very tasteful way. I mean, look at that tagline. I love it. In this game, we see Terry sporting a brand new look I think suits him rather well, as he's now mentoring the son of his arch-nemesis Geese, Rock Howard, and it explores a neighboring town fittingly called Second South Town and the awesomely named King of Fighters, Maximum Mayhem, and all of the characters involved in it. The roster is solid. It has 12 playable characters and 2 secret ones. The cool thing about this game is that, weirdly enough, every character except Terry is debuting in this game, which normally would be a really risky move, but with most of the Fatal Fury cast migrating to KOF, it could have been a bit too repetitive to get more returning characters, especially considering the frequency with which KOF games used to come out back in the day. 1 or 2 more characters wouldn't have hurt though, but it's not as if they were missing again. This is all thanks to the fact that the cast is honestly fantastic. Of course, the legendary wolf himself makes a great lead, but the young Rock is also really cool and edgy without overdoing it too much, combining aspects from both his dad and his mentor. And I also love that according to the wiki, he's like super shy with women in general. The boss of the normal arcade ending, Grant, was terrifying to fight when I was younger, as this dude always gave me anxiety. But man, can you feel the weight and power behind each of his movements. Janet is a super goofball while also being pretty good looking, and I love her intro. Plus, I always dig pirate women in general for whatever reason. Freeman is a creepy character, but he never really ever does it by being too creepy or gory, and his moveset just mirrors his creepiness by honestly being super hard to read at times. And Gato, I mean, do I even need to say anything about him? All of these guys are great, and I could keep talking on and on about all of them, but I gotta give a special shout out to Kain himself. As the true final boss, not only is his playstyle amazing and hard to master, him being a charger character and all, while also looking sleek as all hell, but to top it all off, he's Gee's brother-in-law, which actually makes him Rock's uncle. When I was little and actually good at this game, I got to his fight by pure happenstance without even knowing he was in the game, and I was taken aback when I saw this new boss out of the blue, and I felt like I discovered a super hidden secret nobody knew about. Mainly because I knew no one else that played this game. So I kinda made him my main back in the day. He's just the definition of a really cool fighting game last boss. Not too flashy, not too crazy, just a super strong dude with an effective moveset. The cast is filled to the brim with personality, amazing voice acting, they're all super lovable, except for this one. This kid's annoying after the fourth. But in all honesty, in a game with freaking Terror Bear here, it's amazing they got down a cast of characters so charming. Even years after playing it, I still remember all of them and had the biggest smile while going through their arcade mode again and meeting all of them once more when I got the Switch port of the game. A lot of people consider Mark of the Wolf as the last good SNK game, as the company's production value went down after this, alongside with its financial situation. So another reason why a lot of people treasure this game is because, well, there really wasn't another game as innovative and fresh as this one from the series. As a fighting game, the graphic, the art, the music, sound design, as well as the freaking story for what it was all just pretty epic. There is a lot to discuss about Mark of the Wolves, but more than anything, it's the fact that lately this game has made its round in many newer gen consoles as well as Steam, with a lot of people showing a lot of love for it thanks in no small part to the fact that it now supports online matching. On February 2020, developers Code Mystics updated the online to, quote-unquote, one of the most reliable online playing protocols in the industry. Yeah, even the people that developed the fantastic Streets of Rage 4 did a concept for how a sequel will look, and you can tell there's a lot of love and passion out there for this little game that came out all the way back in 1999, and I honestly can't get enough of it. This and Wak Wak 7 were some of the games that I spent a lot of my free time in, and I am amazed and moved to see at least one of those two be given the recognition it deserves. Maybe one day, buddy. Maybe one day. So that's a bit of history and cultural impact on the game, and while I will talk a little bit more about it as the video goes on, let me show you why legends truly do not die. They just keep getting better. Mark of the Wolf is a typical 2D fighting game with your all too familiar strong light punch combination, 2 super moves with stronger variants, taunts, evasive rolls, throws, and grapples. But of course, it is in its simplicity that this game shines. It is not for naught that a lot of people say this is one of the easiest SNK games for newer players to learn. However, like any respectable fighting game, it has a very easy entry level, but it's also really deep in its mechanics, effectively being easy to play, but difficult to master. Let's quickly check some of these mechanics. I am going to be talking mainly about the ones this game introduces, as there's a lot of things I could talk about, like techniques such as motion storing and other complex mechanics that appear in some way or another in other games such as cancels, counters, and such. First, let's talk about break moves. Similar to animation cancelling in other games, each character has one specific breakable move, basically a move that can be interrupted and combo into other special attack or supers. It helps you rack up the damage while looking like a total pro, since a lot of these moves tend to juggle the opponent and they can even be chained multiple times. We also have Just Defense, similar to Street Fighter 3's perfect parry. By blocking at the perfect time right before an attack is about to hit you, you will recover a little bit of health and also recovering from guarding faster, opening up a perfect opportunity for a counterattack. It is also the only way to air guard, since in Mark of the Wolf you cannot block while jumping. But the main reason why you want to perfect Just Defense is the fact that it doesn't build guard crush. If you defend too much in this game, your character will start flashing red, and if you keep doing so, your guy will, well, break, leaving you exposed to an attack not too different from Smash's guard break. One of my favorite mechanics of this game that I haven't really seen replicated anywhere else are the feints. By pressing forward or down plus A and B at the same time, your character will use the first frames and sound cues of a special attack. This will help you play mind games with your opponent, just like in a real fight. And I especially like Terry because this dude looks like he's ready to give you a hug. And lastly, we need to talk about the most interesting mechanic of this game, the Tactical Orphan's position, or TOP. A special portion of your health bar that once reached will basically kick your character into overdrive. You will gain the following properties during TP mode. You hit harder, gradually restore health, and you have access to TOP attacks. These attacks are super powerful, stylish, and deal a lot of guard damage, so they are a very reliable option in general. They're also thankfully super easy to pull off, only really requiring the press of the C and D buttons, making it so you have no reason whatever to not give them a try. The cool thing about the TOP mechanic is that before the fight starts, you can actually select what third of your health bar you want it to kick in, adding a sweet spot of tacticality. Do you save it in the end when you're in a pinch, or do you go all out right from the get-go and try to go for a perfect win? Maybe even put it in the middle so you can avoid using it too early or too late. It's fun exploring this. And again, not too deep, but depending on your playstyle, it can definitely change from person to person. All of these mechanics make Garou incredibly fun to play and super satisfying once you actually dominate all of them. They can be tricky to pull off at times, especially because this game does have that classic arcade vibe of being too tough to master, but with enough rounds you will be going toe to toe looking like a true legend and a sick as hell fighter. Also helped in no small part by the fact that, in my opinion, this game has the perfect speed. It's just in between the more slow and methodical Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter and the more fast-paced and chaotic KOF or anything Arc System Works put out. This makes it so that while tactical, you will always look super stylish and cool every time you perform those sweet combos and supers. Also, on this next part, I really like something about the CPU being unforgiven but like super good because, you know, it predicts your movements, but no. I swear the AI controlled opponents on the arcade, they just read your controller inputs. I don't know, I remember being really good at this game when I was younger. Maybe it's the age, maybe it's just because I haven't touched this game as much lately, but I'm getting my butt kicked every time I go into the arcade mode on this game. You need to get an overall AAA score by the time you reach Grand if you want to fight Kane, but I could just not do it without lowering the difficulty. And again, maybe I suck at this game now, but I don't remember it being this tough. Maybe it's the Switch port, but I swear the AI opponent always reaches your controller, so things like feints, for example, don't really work, and they abuse the hell out of guarding. Also not helped by the fact that you need to be a little bit too close for grappling, and also the weird directional input plus C instead of just using two buttons at the same time and making it easier. It is satisfying trying to outmatch the computer, but I am just not a big fan of the whole reading your input things. If that is what's happening at the end, I don't know, again, maybe I just suck at this game now. Luckily, even if the AI is giving you a bit too much trouble, the continue service gives you an extra edge by lowering the AI's difficulty, its damage, or even giving you a full power meter. It's just a nice little addition in case you want to continue. Also, I gotta talk about how this game looks, man. Even though this game is quite old, or a classic, if you will, the 2D sprites look super expressive and sleek, and the small animations between each stage and cutscenes are always a treat to see. Sadly though, this game doesn't really have much besides its arcade and versus mode. But luckily, ports like the Switch version brings in high score mode and caravan mode, where you basically compete with other players' scores for a set time. They're not that cool or anything, but they do give you something different to do at the release. And the PS4, Vita, and Steam releases do have that sweet online matching. But honestly, this game on release is satisfyingly sick gameplay, sexy secret boss with the character's ending included, and that sweet versus mode. While in this day and age it's nice having the online play, this is one of those games that shines in couch multiplayer. It already has that retro and classy vibe, so it feels amazing when you have someone next to you just duking it out. A feeling that sadly we don't get much of nowadays, especially considering the current situation we're all going through, so it's actually reassuring that the online is apparently solid. But sadly, for such an amazingly well done game that has a lot of people loving it, due to the financial crisis SNK went through the year following the release of this game, we never really got a sequel for it. Originally, they had one planned supposedly with Joe Higashi scheduled to be featuring it, but due to SNK focusing on hardware production at the time that was, well, pretty much stumped by the competition and its financial crisis, Mark of the Wolf 2 never really came into fruition. Luckily, as mentioned before, nowadays this beloved legend is enjoyed by many people out there thanks to its excellent ports. I know fighting games are not for everyone, and with games like Guilty Gear Strive and other Arc System War games out there, I know this game might look a bit too old for some people. But do hear me out when I say you won't find a more satisfying 2D classic than this one. No fancy insta-kills or V-triggers, no season pass and DLCs, just a simple and highly polished game that pretty much shows how a classic never truly dies. Also being super cheap everywhere, there's no reason why you shouldn't give it a try. Mark of the Wolf is a really special game to me. Not only is Terry Bogard the main reason I went back to Smash Ultimate, but he also happens to be one of my favorite fighting game characters of all times. The music in this game is incredibly catchy and amazing all throughout. The rush you get when you actually get good at it is like no other. Honestly, it is just one of those games that is just polished and incredible from beginning to end. Truly fitting of being called a legend. It warms my heart when I see a classic game brought back to life via ports of re-releases or even a remake, as at times reviving a classic can be proved to be incredibly efficient in the market, seeing how there's a lot of people willing to revive the good old days. And I was so happy when I saw Garou ported to the Switch when I decided to get it. But not only that, when making this video, I was so amazed by seeing how many people enjoy this game as well. After years of being the only person in the room who will always be like, yeah, Street Fighter 4 and KOF 13 are cool and all, but have you ever played Garou? And have a very big percentage of people being like, the f did you say to me? But regardless of all the difficulties and the passage of time, this is one of those games that refuses to die out and be forgotten. It just can't. It's too good for it. So much so that not even SNK will probably ever forget about it. It goes to show that no matter how much time passes, a game with enough passion and polish poured into it will always withstand the test of time. A classic is not defined by its time period. It defines or represents said time period, while also not clinging to it. Garou represents an era long gone for the fighting game genre, but it's so well made it can still stand toe-to-toe with some of the other giants out there. And that is only because legends never truly die. They become better. They become celebrated one way or another. They show their influence and inspire generations to come. And that's why games like Garou, Mark of the Wolves, are perpetually phenomenal. Hey everyone! Thanks for watching the video! This one was, as you can probably tell, a very personal and special one to me, similar to the one for Genshin Impact. It's fun reliving a classic like this and just getting my thoughts out. And it's been a while since I do a video on a video game, so that's also kinda cool. But more than anything, fighting games are pretty much one of, if not my favorite video game genre on it, so I feel really good having a very valid reason to just go out and play this game. Especially now that due to the end of the year and me flying back home for the holidays, I don't tend to play too many story-driven games, so games like Garou and Guilty Gear are actually perfect for this time of year. Also, let me know in the comment section if you actually ever play this game, if you like it, if you ever heard of it, if you were curious about it, or even if this video actually convinced you to play this game, because that would actually be super cool. Or also tell me your favorite current fighting game at the moment, or even your favorite fighting game of all times. Mine is probably Marvel vs. Capcom 2 or 3, maybe BlazBlue Chrono Phantasma or Guilty Gear Strive, although I really like Dragon Ball Supers. Street Fighter is very solid, but I also had a thing with schoolgirls for a while, like I could just not get that game out of my mind. Although Smash, and I'm just gonna stop. I like fighting games, okay? I love fighting games. Anyways, with that out of the way, I'm probably gonna try to have one more video before the year ends, making no promises, but I'm gonna try my best for it because I am very busy with all of those preparations for my trip and also with work and general life stuff. But until then, it seems this is going to be our to be continued. See you all next time. Jana.